Hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you a few stories and a few tidbits about working in nursing homes. Now, understand that these are my life stories and what I've found out over the years. Um, I never knew which ones were profit or uh, government run, and frankly, it's kind of hard to tell. And quite often, if there is any form of negligence or abuse being done to seniors, it is very hard to prove. But I can tell you what it was like years ago when I worked in them, and as well as up to about 10 years ago when I went for my HCA course, which I failed because of sensory overloads and having a very difficult time because the school was not exactly that accommodating. So, needless to say, I've seen some pretty interesting things happen in nursing homes and in uh, group homes for seniors. And suffice to say, what you read about in news reports, you can definitely scale it down, but it does happen. And it happens more often than you think. Because the practices done back in the day, like 20 years ago, yes, the care was a lot better, but hate to say this, it's no different than, say, what is going on now in nursing homes. It's just that COVID has brought it to light. Um, many years ago, in my early 20s, worked in a few nursing homes before you needed a piece of paper to say you can use a Hoyer lift, which are basically apparatuses that are mechanical that help those that are immobile get out of bed. Like if you can't stand, there's a apparatus called a sit stand transfer machine. A Hoyer lift is basically a machine that's shaped like an upside down L, and you sit the person into a sling kind of deal, and you move the person from bed to chair and so on and so forth. Um, and there's a lot of uh, things that help people in these type of jobs for which people do work at. Now, because of COVID, as I said, a lot of stories have come to light when it comes to the care of people and people's needs. Now, I'm going to tell you a few scary situations for which I witnessed and, well, had to work in. Um, when I was barely 23, I worked in this nursing home where this poor lady, she was basically bedridden. She couldn't talk. She was full dementia. But you turn her and you saw this great big huge bed sore which would never heal, and you could literally see once you took the bandage off right down to the bone. It was forever oozing blood and pus, and I swear this lady, that's how this lady died. um, by per recommendation per care of bedridden people, they should be turned at least once every hour or 2 hours max. But many times, a lot of people who are bedridden hardly get turned at all. Now, here's the other side of it. If the person needs depends, everything is logged or accounted for, and people are only allowed X amount per day as to how many depends a client might get, even if it is their own stuff. And that to me is wrong. If a person voids, average people void more than once a day. Let's just put it that way. And I've seen times where someone's grandma or grandpa or relative is in a very precarious situation for which they're nonverbal because of dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever, and they're basically left there. The person can't tell you if they voided or not. They can just sit there and scream and cry. And it's very sad to see. And I've had nurses and care aides actually tell me to leave the person alone. They do that all the time, but yet you can plain as day smell the fecal matter or urine on this person. And a part of the care field, the word care in itself should mean something, but a lot of times, a lot of people become jaded and they forget the human aspect of it. Um, Other times I have seen where, you know how we take for granted that we have showers as many times as we want? Imagine being in a nursing home. You're only allowed 2 showers a day or a week. The rest of the time it's a bed bath. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if I voided and was incontinent, I would want a shower every single time. I don't give two hoots. I mean, all that skin throughout the week that falls off or accumulates on your body is itchy as hell. I mean, I can't go without a shower for at least no more than 2 days. Any more than that, I'm itchy all over and it's gross. Um, sure, these seniors don't move around a lot, but seniors sweat too. I mean, it's absolutely gross. Um, the products that seniors have to use if they are incontinent also can cause um, open sores within the groin area, for which skin breakdown is quite prevalent. And if there isn't certain creams or certain things done to mitigate circumstance in the groin area, those bed sores, those that skin breakdown, it's going to happen. And they don't seniors ability to heal is not as good as, say, those that are really young. And I've seen this happen time and time again. Um, some seniors end up with other issues like on their feet because they can't bend down near as easy as the rest of us who are younger, and their feet are as dry as hell and they're all cracked. And of course your feet are going to be sore if they're going to be cracked and scaly, and no one is taking care of these seniors the way it should be. If it's, as far as I'm concerned, sometimes all it takes is to talk to these seniors. Even if they can't talk, they can still hear you, and they're somewhere in there when it comes to dementia or Alzheimer's. They're just stuck in another um, part of their life, and you have to come into their world. Much like anyone who is of non-disability issue would have to come into any one of ours to relate with us. So simple, but yet we forget. Um, when I was doing my practicums with my course, there was one time that I was in this place, very large nursing home right here in Edmonton. This was about 10 years ago, and around the time that I first got diagnosed. And what I saw was um, basically seniors being left in their own scat. I mean, I have seen it where I actually got in trouble one time for helping somebody else's patient because she was nowhere to be found. And this poor guy, had been sitting there for like 2 or 3 hours. And you could literally smell the body odors off this person, and especially from what protrudes from the nether regions. And this poor guy, um, I couldn't bear to watch this continue. So once I got done with my clients, I went and helped another nurse by changing the poor fella. I knew exactly what to do and how to do it because I had already done it for like 20 years. Most of you might know, I have a parent that has a chronic illness, and I take care of people with multiple sclerosis as well, and in their own homes to this day. And when I helped this gentleman by giving him a quick bed bath in the nether regions and made sure that he was comfortable, um, the nurse that was in charge of this poor fella went and got my teacher, and I thought I was doing a good thing, but again, no, I was supposed to stay with my own client, even though that this one senior was screaming his head off. How is it that when our colleges in the HCA program say that we go into the field to care, that we as students in this field trying to learn that area of expertise, that we're not allowed to help other people's clientele, even though that it's pretty much a part of our program? As far as I'm concerned, I have a huge heart. There is no way in hell that I would ever, ever leave someone's parent unattended if they have incontinence issues for which could bring on skin breakdown and or discomfort. That is a person's job when you're in a care home. If you are a caregiver, the emphasis on the word care has to play first and foremost on any job that deals with healthcare. Excuse me. Now, the other side of it is that when you look at these seniors as if you're a trustee of the person's care, I'm going to say this right now loud and clear. For every senior that's in one of those buildings, it is $2,000 to $4,000 per senior. And most of these companies will look at the dollar signs more than the person. Sorry to say that. And if you go and pull that senior and put them on, say, self-managed care programs, which is through HS, and basically that's where you as the trustee of said accounts would also be allowed to pull your parent through means of doing the paperwork that makes it so that they can transfer to another nursing home, or pull them out and have them live at home with you, and hire people like me through means of self-managed care programs. And yes, you can find the program online still to this day. It's basically people like me that would come into your home. Yes, they might be untrained, but in the school end of things, but they might have a lifetime of knowledge like I do. And I probably know just as much or more than most HCAs, because I was raised around illness. And by the time I was 23, I already knew how to use a Hoyer lift. So that gives you an idea. But suffice to say, it allows people like me who are not necessarily educated in the care field of, say, said parents' care and such through means of schooling or more formal practices, but through means of a lifetime of experience. And that's where you as trustees know that you might be getting better care than, say, what might happen at a profit type environment. The other side of it, a lot, because the care is lacking in a lot of places, it's because they lack the staff necessary to take care of X amount of people that might be in, say, one building. So when I was doing caregiving back in the day, we had 10 clients per one caregiver. So you can imagine. And even back in the day when I was 23, I always felt that it was almost like maybe we should put all these poor people on a conveyor belt and have us all line up. One does the dressing of open wounds, another does medication, another does the wiping down of certain parts, another one powders the area, another one dresses the area, and further on down the line it goes, and then someone shovels food into somebody's mouth if they can't feed themselves. Because that's how it felt. And you had only X amount of time per client. So not only are you being rushed, but you also have to log in how long you were with the person, what you did with the person, what you noticed when it comes to their skin or mood changes. You also have to take note on how many undergarments that person used for one day, what they take, you name it. And then on top of that, quite often, a lot of these people are pretty much left in the middle of the hall looking at the nurse's desk. Meanwhile, there's, 5 nurses squawking at the desk? Yeah, I've seen that one too many times. Meanwhile, Grandpa just voided because, well, he just had water. Well, we all know what happens if you leave urine in a pad for too long. If it gets full, the person ends up having skin issues because of sweat and urine, which causes skin breakdown, and you get the picture. You as family members, the place might look clean, the staff are friendly. It's when you're gone that the shit show begins. So, just keep that in mind. It's very hard to prove what happens behind the walls, but as a caregiver who has been in some of these places, I'm sorry to say, but your family member is looked upon as a dollar sign, not a human. It doesn't matter if it's for profit or non-profit. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I feel sorry for your parents. I feel sorry for your family members that might be in these places. That's why I don't work in those places anymore. Also because I don't have the education, but I do work in people's homes as a caregiver. I do exactly the same thing as any old caregiver in a nursing home. And frankly, you get better care when you're at home. I had a friend who had self-managed care, or had agency care at home, and they lived at home. And again, I'm not going to name any companies, I'm not going to say anything bad, but I can say that these people from said company left my friend one too many times on the floor in her own scat. This is my bridesmaid, just before my wedding. That was like 6 years ago. And the person had MS and they could barely walk. And the person that assisted my friend kept on pointing at her watch saying, blah, blah, blah. I don't have time. I don't know how to use a Hoyer lift. You go to school to learn how to use these goddamn tools. How is it that an HCA does not know how to use a sit, stand, pivot, transfer machine, or even a Hoyer lift? That's ludicrous. You're supposed to be qualified. But they left my friend many times on the floor, either in her scat or whatever, and they just took off and left her there. They didn't bother using the Hoyer lift. They didn't bother seeing what they can do to make sure she was comfortable. And for many of you who need these devices, you might be on AISH, and as much as ambulance might be covered a few times, What happens if it's more than twice a month that you end up having the ambulance guys coming to save your butt or get you up off the floor when all you needed was a friend like me? My friend was on a pension, a disability pension. Everything she made went towards making sure that she had food or otherwise. One ambulance call, because she wasn't on age and it wasn't covered, could equal a month's worth of food. Thank God I was in her life, because as much as some ambulance people are really nice to look at, they're also really expensive for those that are on age or CPP. And I got my friend up off the floor, cleaned up and whatever else, but nonetheless, UHCA's out there. Make sure you know your shit before you get into the job. If you don't know how to use a Hoyer lift, find someone who fucking knows how and teach you every so often. Because if you don't practice it, or if you don't use it, you lose it. Do yourself a big favor. Get acquainted with the machines that you may have to use from time to time. Because if you go into someone's home and they use those devices and they fall on the floor and you don't know how to use that device, God forbid, how can you call yourself qualified if you don't know how to use it? Number one. Number two, if you work in an agency, ask your agency to come up with in-house courses where you can learn these devices, because you never know who you're going to be working at. It would be wise that you learn. Number two, those that are family members of said people that live with you, it would be wise that you learn how to use these devices. Because 9 times out of 10, if you are in self-managed care, you have family living with you that needs these devices, it would be wise to find someone who knows how so that they can teach you. I know how. I'm sorry to go on a rant like that, but I've seen so much in my time. Working in nursing homes, working in people's homes, having friends with mobility issues, and watching agencies and staff alike not know how to use certain apparatuses within the environment for which they're working. If they don't know how to use a Hoyer lift, you might want to tell your boss that, or ask your boss, hey look, does this person in my lineup of people that I have to care for today use a Hoyer lift? If so, get acquainted with it before you get on the job, because if you don't know how to use it, tell the boss that you're unqualified because you haven't used it in a long time and you don't know how and you need to be taught. It takes skill to learn how to use a Hoyer lift by yourself. Trust me. But it's not impossible. Those that are trustee of these family members, do yourself a big favor and take it from a caregiver. If the place tells you that your family member is not taking their meds, maybe you should check out the issues of swallowing, because often with dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, swallowing becomes an issue in later stages. So, in all my years, I have never had a problem with crushing up certain medications and sticking it in whatever favorite food that a client may like. It is a full-on, dead-on fucking excuse for any HCA to say the person won't take their meds if they crush the meds into the yogurt and whatever. You know what? Do you know what I used to do? I used to get a little tiny shot glass, put a spoonful of yogurt in there, or two, crush the meds, and scoop it up with mix it up with a spoon, and put it in the person's mouth. Another thing I used to do was I would make a smoothie out of it. If the person has a hard time swallowing, you can put meds into a smoothie. And I bet you anything, they would never taste it. But then again, that's sheer laziness on the worker's part. You find different ways to do things. Because some of those medications are the only thing keeping that patient alive. Number one. So it's a full-on, dead-on, shit-ass excuse to say that the person won't take their meds if they won't put it in yogurt or otherwise. Have you tried? Number one. Number two, if the person refuses to take a bath, why not do yourself a big favor? I know it's going out of your way, but you know what? It's about being human. Treating people like human. Human decency, dignity. Isn't that what caregiving's all about? Bring them to the bathroom and let them watch you wash a bathtub. So simple. That way they know damn well that it's fucking clean. But, again, I've seen it where seniors actually don't have a shower or a bath for weeks on end because the staff are fucking lazy. That is negligence. That is... I'm sorry, but anyone who has a parent that is not getting the care they need, proper care, that is abuse. And you have the right as the person who is in charge of that person's care and as well as money. You're paying good money for that person to be there. Therefore, you should also have full say as to what the hell happens to that person with their care. So if grandma hasn't had a shower in, say, 11 days, and they tell you this, and they give you some shit excuse about whatever they wish to tell you, don't listen. Number one. Number two, if you want to pull said parent because you are the trustee and what have you, you have all the power to do so. If they say that it's too much paperwork, don't listen. Tell them to shove it up their ass and get their asses in gear. Simple as that. Be done. Don't let them play games because they are looking at it as dollar signs, not human signs. I'm telling you the truth. They will feed you every goddamn excuse in the book as to why they won't do the paperwork to transfer grandma. It's because it's about the bottom line. When you have to report everything that you use or why you needed whatever for whatever reason, like extra depends that day because grandpa voided way too much. You know what? It's human nature to shit your shit or pee. What isn't human nature is to be forced to sit in your own scat when you have dementia. When I hear stories from people within the group about their family members being in these situations, it only reminds me of my history. And I can tell you this. Even back in the day, the clients were all looked at as dollar signs. So remember that when you put your family into any facility. Sure, the care might be better in one than the other, but practices are similar all across the board. So keep that in mind. I can't say enough. Um, and I feel sorry for those that have family in these places because I'm one person who's going to outwardly say this. If I ever get to that stage where I can no more take care of myself, I will never go into a home. If I'm too old to wipe my own ass, if I'm too old to do things for myself, if I don't have the mental capacity to know what the hell is going on, let alone my own name, I don't want to be here. And thank God BC has euthanasia, because a nursing home will be the last choice I will ever make. I wouldn't want to be in any parent's shoes these days, especially during COVID. It's got to be lonely with all that isolation and never seeing your family or your kids. I wonder how many of those COVID patients were seniors and they died and didn't have COVID. Just stating a point. Loneliness kills too. I hope all of you learned something from me today, because my lifetime of experience has taught me a lot over the years. Yes, it's a sad reality to know what goes on behind the scenes in some places, but sometimes we all need to hear it, because a lot of caregivers or nurses will never talk about what goes on in behind the doors because they want to keep their jobs. But I'm not working in those places. Haven't for a long time. And I never will. But what happened back then, what you hear in news, yeah, it's sad, but the reality is that it happens more often than you think. So I just wanted to put that on your laps. Maybe in smaller towns the care is a lot nicer and a lot better, but the bigger the town, the less care you get. All you have to do is walk around Edmonton and find the nursing homes that are of questionable nature. If they're for profit, chances are the care is less. So, sorry to tell you the sad tale of what it's like, but as the caregiver that has worked in these places, I feel sorry for those that have to live there. Because if a caregiver is saying that they'd rather euthanasia than to go into one of these places, there's a reason for it. Anyway, have yourselves all a nice day. And kind of give what I said some thought. All right, catch you later.